All right, Adam, we had practice 13 today, and the Buffaloes on that backside now of fall camp. They've hit the over of those 25 practices, and offensive line day today. And we got Coach Bill O'Boyle as well as two offensive linemen. Awesome getting two players today. Van Wells and Savion Washington. So I think we learned a lot about the offensive line today. And initially, what are your impressions of talking to those guys today?
Well, first off, Coach O'Boyle kind of led us into what's going on with Tyler Brown, because that's been a big mystery this preseason, and he revealed that not only did he deal with mono, but he's also got to figure out whether he's eligible with the NCAA, and he made it seem like that ruling hasn't come down, a final ruling at least. So makes sense now why we've seen Tyler Brown not really participating and then back in the mix, but not going with that first, second team, because Coach O'Boyle said at this point, I got to get the guys ready that I know are going to be ready for the season, ready to go there. And he's really trying to cultivate depth, and kind of like how we felt coming out of spring ball. We felt good about that starting group. The big question was, okay, how deep is this group going to be? And if Tyler Brown's not able to go, that hurts a little bit there, but it really did help bringing in Jack Bailey this summer and Landon Beebe as well. The question at this point with depth really, I think, would be a tackle behind Savion Washington and Jared Christian Lichtenhand. Coach O'Boyle did mention Reggie Young, a guy that has a sense of urgency with just 1 year left to play, and he came in with big size, so they need him to step up and be a depth piece there.
Yeah. And real quick on Tyler Brown, I mean, the issue there is that he is that second-time transfer and not a grad transfer, and so he's got to get that waiver to be eligible to play. And so, we've seen other players around the country that, have tweeted out already they've got that waiver denied. And so we'll see with Tyler Brown. But you're right, if he's not there, that hurts that depth piece. And what we've seen a lot of so far in the videos we've been able to see is they're pretty much a standard group of 5/6 right now with that offensive line, and it is Jared Christian Lichtenhand and Savion Washington at the tackles, and really Jack Bailey at left tackle, and that right tackle seems to be kind of Jack Wiltie and Landon Beebe, and then Van Wells at center. And so I like that 6, but and some combination of that, and we've seen it in the past where coaches they can't really decide on those other two guards, and they'll rotate them, and I think that works sometimes as well. And so I like that 6, but to your point, it's when you get beyond that, what do you really have? And that's kind of one of my biggest concerns with this team is if there's injuries there, if you don't have a Tyler Brown, what are they going to do there?
But again, going back to those 6 guys, it's a really good group, and especially with Van Wells really taking the horns of that center position. In the spring, O'Boyle really challenged Van Wells and said that he needed some more competition in this program. But now we hear from Coach O'Boyle that Van Wells has had a really good camp, and that we hear from other guys every offensive lineman I've talked to has said the chemistry between Van Wells and Shedeur Sanders is something special. And so we knew from the second that Van Wells got on campus last summer that he was more intelligent than the average offensive lineman coming in as a true freshman, and parlayed that into being a freshman All-American. But, there were definitely areas that he needed to improve, and he's really embraced that challenge. And he's a guy that could potentially be an all-conference type of guy if he puts it all together.
Going back a year ago, I mean, the two freshmen that we would hear about all the time were Jordan Tyson and Van Wells, right? And both those guys were pretty good players. And, Van Wells mentioned that, he mentioned that chemistry as well with Shedeur. I liked his comment. He said, last year I really just kind of played off of talent, whereas this year I feel like I'm playing off of experience and just kind of knowing a lot more about the game. And you have to like that. That's the type of growth you want to see out of every player. But for a guy like that, as bad as last year was for this team, for him to get that experience, I think he made 8 starts, extremely valuable for him.
Yeah, this is a challenging offense for offensive linemen, especially from the conditioning standpoint. So a lot is being asked of these guys. They have to make really quick decisions out there. If you have a center that you really trust, the way it looks like they trust Van Wells, that is such a key to running this offense. And then having Savion Washington and Jack Bailey with the history in this offense, those pieces together make you, again, feel really good if they can just stay healthy.
Yeah. Well, another interesting comment that Bill O'Boyle had was that in his last offense, in Shedeur's last offense, he made a lot of those protection calls, whereas in this offense, it's more on the offensive lineman, and he said that takes some pressure off of Shedeur. He's got enough on his plate, and so I kind of like that as well. Give some ownership to the offensive lineman, and listening to Van and Savion, it sounds like there is good communication with those guys there. That Savion or Van said that, hey, Jared sometimes calls something that I didn't see, and so it sounds like there's good communication there. again, that top six I really like.
Yep.
If they can, it looks like they're doing a good job. And we keep hearing about how explosive this offense can be, and it starts with those guys. And
Yep.
Savion was asked, do you feel some pressure whenever Coach Prime says, "Just protect my son"? He goes, "Oh, he reminds us all the time that's his son we're trying to protect there." And
Yeah.
but Coach Prime, obviously, it's his son, but it's quarterback. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, son or not. You got to protect the quarterback in college football and in all levels of football, right?
Yeah, no question, and that is. We keep going back to it. They can't afford number 2 to get hurt. So, yeah, that is a lot of pressure on that group. I really like Bill O'Boyle's temperament as an offensive line coach. He looks like an offensive line coach, talks like an offensive line coach, and demands things out of these guys like an offensive line coach. He kind of reminds me of Chris Kapilovich, who is, I don't know if he's the best offensive line coach in the program's history, but Chris Kapilovich was the best O-line coach I've covered here. And I see some of those same similarities where Bill O'Boyle – he's really going to get on his guys, but man, you can tell he really cares about them too, and this means a whole lot to him. So I think they got a pretty good offensive line coach, and it makes a lot of sense why, especially with Sean Lewis and the history they have together, why that's such a good marriage together.
And offensive linemen have the stereotype of this being like these meatheads that are in the middle of the field, right? But they've always been, to me, they've always been one of the more intelligent groups on the football field, and that seems to be the case here. You listen to Bill O'Boyle, it's like, yeah, he's a pretty cerebral guy, and you learn a lot from Bill O'Boyle. And so I agree with you. I think he's got a chance to be a really good offensive line coach and be an asset for this program. So we'll see with the depth on this offensive line, but at least we feel like they've got a pretty good starting six, or group of six.
Group of six, and Tyler Brown could really help that if the NCAA allows him to do that. We haven't seen a ton of the O-line in the behind-the-scenes footage from camp because they're trying to shoot pretty tight and not give too much away. But there was a play on Thursday where Dylan Edwards was downfield on a screen pass, and Van Wells and Jack Wilty were down there creating space for him to cut it back up the field. And so it's got to be fun for those guys blocking for Dylan Edwards, who continues to be a rising star in this program. I know Uncle Neely had him as his offensive MVP 3 days in a row. It seems like every day you turn on Well Off Media and it's Dylan Edwards with multiple touchdowns. So I don't even know how long you have to block for a guy like Dylan Edwards. Just hold those guys up for a second, he's going to be gone.
Yeah, I think probably the most noise the offensive line has made in camp was the fight the other day, right, where Jared Christian Lichtenhand came to the defense of Anthony Hankerson. That got a lot of attention. Bill O'Boyle's asked about that. Do you like seeing that? He goes, I want to see more of it. Not necessarily the fighting, but guys, playing for each other and having pride for each other, and that's an offensive line trait too that you want to see out of this group.
I thought it was more of a scuffle, to be honest with you. I mean, it's getting so overblown and misinterpreted. If you've ever been around a preseason football camp, that happens every other day, and coaches are going to say similar things. You've got to back up your teammates. So the fact that this has grown legs nationally is just shows we need to get to the season opener so we can talk about actual football.
Yeah, well, we're getting there soon, and we got a couple weeks. We got the weekend off. We'll be back on Monday.